Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about why it takes so long, why we get so many circumstances where Dragon Masters do not become Dungeon Masters. So you and I are Dungeon Masters, and we understand how important it is to craft the world, right? But we have 5 Dragon Masters who come to the table, right? The red, white, and blue, the green and the black. 5 people who have their own player characters, right? And there is a shortage. This is widely talked about today, that there is a shortage of. I'm not. Yeah, there is a shortage of dungeon masters. I, I think the correct thing to say is there's a shortage of good dungeon masters. I think there's a lot of mid dungeon masters and worse, right? But we absolutely have a shortage of good dungeon masters, right? And the question is, why don't dragon masters, get up, come around the table, and take that head seat, right? Like, why do they keep sitting at the side of the table? Also, my table's got room for 6, right? So I'm at the head, right? There's 4 on each. There's two on the right, 2 on the left, and from now on, like, how do we get people to realize the end of the table? That's the next dungeon master. like you in training. like if you're on the sides, you probably ain't gonna be a dungeon master soon. But if you're on the end, I'm at the front of the table. If you're at the back of the table, right, you're not on the sides, you should be getting ready to be a dungeon master. Well, let's get into it. So Grace Randolph did a fantastic breakdown of the show Shogun. And she spoilers for the show Shogun. Shogun was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. And she said, what really blew her mind was, John Blackstone, he has this ship. He brings this ship across the world. And then he falls into all these politics, and he's made a general. He's made, best friends with Lord Toranaga, best friends with this samurai, best friends with that samurai. Maybe he's going to replace this lady's husband, like he has courtesans, the whole 9, right? Like, and what's happened to his men right now? His men are scattered to the 5 winds in Japan, right? And it ends up finally that John Blackstone's ship is sunk, right? As soon as it's sunk, he literally drags his ship out of the he drags the ship out of the sea and just rebuilds it, right? But there were 40 men on that ship with him. 40, right? They all died. When he goes to see them again, they're down to 6. So Grace Randolph's like, why didn't these guys just pull the ship out themselves and go home, right? He hadn't seen them for months, right? Maybe over a year, right? So why was he the only one willing to drag the ship out of the sea, rebuild it, get back in the ocean, and go back to England, right? Well, she said this beautifully. She said, some people do not want the burden of navigating their own ship. They want to be on the sails. They want to be in the lookout. They want to be in the galley making food. They don't want the burden of navigating their own ship. They don't want to have to do the labor of dragging the ship back out and rebuilding. They don't want to have the burden of determining, do they head back? They're in Japan, right? Do they go to China? Do they go to India? Do they go all the way back to England? They have to make that decision, right? Then they have to navigate it. They have to set the charts, right? And then they have to lead. Somebody has to lead, right? And so these dragon masters that never become the dungeon master, they don't want the burden of having to navigate their own ship, right? They want to be in the galley. They want to be on the sails. They want to be in the lookout, right? Now here's the part where Scott Garibay says it different than the rest of the world, right? It's not right, right? Every single person, since we have a shortage of dungeon masters, if you are a skilled Dragon Master, you have to advance. It's not okay for you to sit at the table forever, right? And what's the kicker? Well, 3 years. 3 years. If you have been a skilled, crushing it, stones to the wall, epic player for 3 years, that's it, man. You need to step up. You need to slide over. You need to get to the Dungeon Master seat. It's not okay for you to just sit in the Dragon Master seat. It would be okay, possibly, if we didn't have a shortage of good DMs, right? But Gary's legacy calls you to it. You owe a debt to Gary, right? He's the reason you have 3 libraries. He's the one that your charisma is higher, that your confidence is higher, and your intelligence is higher. You owe a debt to the legacy of Gary Gygax. Get up, set up, navigate your own ship. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.